Hey y'all, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank and I'm with Jonathan.
Hey, hey, yo.
And we're back after 2 weeks off. I was under the
Mm.
weather and I was like, I don't feel like trying to try to get you guys recorders. Squeaks is all on board, but I was like, oh man, now I gotta type while I'm sick. I forget that. So we are back and good to go. You were just at Disneyland. How was that, man?
I was. That was so much fun. I wish we stayed longer. There
Yeah.
was a lot to see. My son's only 2, so there's a lot of rides he couldn't go on, but we went on just about everything he could go on, and I went
Yeah.
on a few extras. But yeah, it was a blast. I'm ready to go back.
First time seeing the Avengers Campus and Galaxy's Edge. Any thoughts?
Galaxy's Edge was amazing. If I didn't have a small child with me or other people that I need to spend time with, I would just hang out in that area probably the whole day. Yeah, there's a lot to see. It's so immersive. They did a good job at making it feel like you're in a different world when you go in there. The Avengers campus was a little disappointing. It
Really?
wasn't as big as I thought it was. A lot of people were excited to go over there and just take pictures with the building and stuff. Um, but it wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be. The Spider-Man ride was a ton of fun though. It's similar
Mm.
to the Buzz Lightyear and a Toy Story ride where you're moving around and shooting at a screen. But it was fun. But aside from that, there wasn't much to do there. There was a massive store. The Avengers store, I think, was bigger than anything else Avengers, which is a little disappointing. Like Disney's just, reaching in our pockets. But overall, I thought it was a lot of fun and liked it.
I'm looking forward to checking it out. Hopefully this November I could see it. Yeah, I mean Galaxy's Edge sounds like it's just freaking magical. The way everybody
Yeah,
describes it. So I'm
yeah.
looking
And I
forward to
did see
getting in there.
the Mandalorian, person walking around. And then later on TikTok, I saw somebody that was there around the same time as me, and they saw the Mandalorian and Boba Fett like meet up in the park, and they
Mm.
stop and they shake hands and talk to each other for a little bit, and then they take a picture of the kids and stuff. It's like, man, that's pretty
Oh,
cool.
that's awesome. Did
Yeah,
you see does Grogu move? He has like Grogu in a pouch.
yeah. It looked like it could have been just him manipulating him with like a string or something like that,
Yeah.
but it looks like he moves a little bit. Yeah, like
Okay.
turns his head.
Man, that is dope. I can't wait to go over there and check it out.
Yeah.
All right. So our question for the week, guys, by the way, reminder, we put all these questions of the weeks now on Instagram and Twitter, and then we'll share some of the responses. This one we got a lot of responses for, so we're gonna only share a few. The question is, what's the most underrated sci-fi or fantasy book or movie? So many options here. I'm gonna start off real quick with just straight up cheating and saying Saga, because of course, if you listen to this podcast, you know we're big fans of Saga. But I really feel like this is an HBO worthy series, and the fact that I haven't even heard it being purchased by one of the big companies kind of blows me away.
Yeah.
It is
Right.
incredibly cool.
It is a little edgy, so I think HBO is the one that would be best to take it. But
Yeah.
someday, I think it's going to take a little time, maybe some more exposure, and they'll pick it up. But definitely, I'd love to see this in a series. But they have to do it right. No, um, Avatar, Last Airbender movie style, where you just ruin a franchise by making a terrible movie.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that'd be awesome.
What are you
Uh,
thinking?
my pick, my pick is In Time, the movie I think
Yeah.
came out 2011. Justin Timberlake and Amanda Seyfried. I don't remember,
Mhm.
but uh, and the guy I have his name here, if I could say it, Killian Murphy.
Killian Murphy, baby, from Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, there you go. I'm like, he's on so much good stuff.
He is.
Um, anyways, such an awesome movie where your time, the amount of time you have in life is used as currency. So
Yeah.
when you're born, you have a certain amount of time preloaded. At 10 years old, I think is when your clock starts ticking, and you have to trade. You trade your work for time. You get paid by minutes on your clock, and it's displayed on your arm, on your forearm, in like a green digital display.
Yeah.
And you like kind of do a handshake to be able to exchange time, or you can scan and upload different ways. But it's just such a interesting world. The way these people were everybody was genetically modified to have this trait, and it shows classism and this social
Really
structure. It's
good job
just
of classism in this, because like the rich people just have like straight nines, and it's like
yeah,
it's ticking down, but it's something they don't even give a shit about. Well, poor people are like, I've got enough for this weekend. I might be able to make. I'm gonna make it till Monday at 2 p.m. So
yeah.
let me see what I can do. I gotta kind of scratch some money up, something like that. It's crazy. Or
One
time
of the
up.
most impactful scenes in the movie, and because your life is based on the time on your arm, you don't age. Once you hit 25 or something like
That's
that, you don't
right.
age anymore.
Yeah.
So his mom looks like the same age as him,
Yeah.
which is really really cool. Justin Timberlake, Will Solace in the movie. But one of the most impactful scenes is they're working poor. They both have jobs
Oh,
and
I
they
know the
barely
scene you're
make it.
talking about. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
barely make it day to day. His mom somehow misses the bus. Oh no, she doesn't have enough money for the bus,
Yeah,
and so she's like, "Well, I got to run home. You know, my son just got paid today. He's gonna give me another day, another
yeah.
few hours
By
or
the way, it's
whatever."
not money ever. It's all time, which is the crazy part. Like you have to
Yeah,
take 15 minutes off your life to be able to ride the bus, kind of thing.
yeah. And every day you get these poor people get paid enough just to live for the next day and go to
Hmm.
work. So they're literally gonna die if they miss a day of work. And so she misses the bus or can't afford the bus, and he's waiting for her to get home and realizes she's not home on time. And he starts running her direction. She starts running his direction. They're both gonna meet up as soon as they could touch hands. He can give her some more time to live, and they don't make it. Seconds from reaching, she collapses in his arms, frozen dead
Yeah.
because she ran out of time. Like, oh my god, that's such a
I forgot
insane
how
good
perfect that freaking movie is. Justin
such a good
Timberlake.
movie,
What the hell?
right?
You don't have the right to make such a good movie.
Yeah, and so this scene, this moment is traumatic for him and
Yeah,
eye opening. He's like, you know what? I don't. Nothing else matters anymore. I'm gonna just make justice and be Robin Hood pretty much. So he
yeah.
goes and he he gets lucky meeting a rich man who's depressed and whatnot. But yeah, it's Henry Cavill actually
Yeah.
is the rich man that's depressed sitting on a bridge and gives him a century.
You're dropping names, John. I forgot that both Killian Murphy and Henry Cavill are in this movie. That's pretty nuts.
Dude, I mean, if they wanted to make a series out of this, don't just make a movie. That's not
Oh,
enough.
that's a great
Make a
idea.
series.
This should be a
Yeah,
really good series. All right,
just
I'm
call it
already gonna
time.
add it to the list for challenge accepted. I think I'm gonna
Oh
surprise
yeah,
Thomas. You're welcome to join us on that one, man. You're always
yeah.
welcome to
Oh,
join
it's
us.
such a good movie. I'd probably
I
probably
haven't
join you
seen
guys.
that in so long. My God. Okay, that's a good one. Now that was so good. So let me read some of our responses here. Thornbreak, who he actually runs the ElfQuest podcast and a lot of the community over there. He suggested ElfQuest, and which is not necessarily underrated in my opinion. It's underknown as the very first comic book I ever read. And if you guys don't know, ElfQuest, fantastic comic book, originally started in the 80s. And the first like entire quest, which is like 500, 600 pages long, all free. They give it away for
Mhm,
free because they're such cool, awesome indie creators. Please go check out ElfQuest. Here's a movie for you, John.
mhm.
Explorers. Do you remember Explorers, where three kids build a spaceship in like the behind the old theater?
No,
Yeah, it
I
is
don't remember that at
super
all.
forgotten from the 80s, man. One of those movies where like, did I watch that? Did it really exist? That kind of thing. Bridge of Birds, a novel about ancient China that never was. That was suggested and then a lot of likes on it. So it picked up pretty big. A couple of these added on my list. This is by Barry Hogarth. We have The Way of the Shadow. This is from Scott. He actually is one of our moderators, but he said it's a Night Angel trilogy. It is pretty fantastic. She Could Fly, suggested by Professor Frenzy. He suggests that one. And then we have The Beetle, a mystery. This is by Richard Martian. It was suggested by uh, Geordie Nerd. I like these names, by the way. Here we go. This is one we were talking about just before we start pressing record. Scott Rogers suggested Prospect with Pedro Pascal, a movie I have never heard of. And it came out in like,
Yeah,
what, 2019, you were saying?
yeah, I think so. 2018 or something. I didn't hear anything about it, but just kind of browsing through different movies online, I saw a picture and I was like, wait, Pedro Pascal in space? That looks good. I mean, we've seen that before. I want to see it again. And then yeah, I started reading about it. It's like, I gotta watch this movie. How do we not hear about some of these,
I know.
great looking movies? Maybe it was lower budget or something like that, and so
When I
it
looked
might
at the
not have the
screenshots, though, I
polish,
was
but
like, that don't look that low budget. Nowadays, low budget's not too
yeah,
bad anymore, but
true. Yeah.
10 Cent Takes, really good show, guys. Super supportive. They suggest Conan the Barbarian. The new version of Conan the Barbarian is the 2099 version. It's got it's like sci-fi mixed with fantasy. It's a little bit of both. That 2099 run too is always very good. And then I'll just say one more. We got Nick McDonald suggests Richard Cowdery's Sandman Slim, the novel. There are probably about 40 suggestions on our Twitter. You guys go over there and check them out. There's some really cool ones. And I definitely have added some stuff to my Amazon wish list. So please check those out. That's pretty cool.
One
All
more
right.
I wanted to mention I forgot was
Yes.
Pacific Rim. We talked about it a little bit
Yeah.
earlier. I love that movie. The sequel wasn't as good as the original, but still very good. So if you haven't seen those, go check them out.
Idris Elba, enough said.
Yeah, you
Right?
just tell.
He's so freaking cool.
And Charlie Day, he's hilarious.
He is, and he's like so out of nowhere in that movie. He's gonna be our new
Yeah.
Luigi, guys. By the way, if you call the Mario number, it still works, and you can hear Charlie Day being like, "Hey, this is Mario and Luigi." Have you tried that out yet?
Yeah, yeah.
I
That's
love
so
it. It's
fun.
so funny.
Oh
Oh
my
man.
god.
What can't come over right now? It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the news, guys. First off, there's a leaked Scooby-Doo and DC movie that just got out there. This is Scooby-Doo and Crypto 2. And what's important about this movie is one of four movies in a series for Scooby-Doo that was cut because Warner Brothers was like, well, it's cheaper to take the tax write-off, right? We've heard this before. And somebody found it in the studio and was like, screw that. I like this movie and leaked it out to everybody. Some shady
Nice.
justice. Oh,
Is it, do you think that's a unintentional leak or an intentional leak by the studio? They could say, "Oh, we didn't try to release it, but somebody stole it and snuck it out, and now all of our fans get to enjoy it, and we get notoriety from it."
if I believed that they were nice, then I would say that's the
Well, no,
case, right?
it's the free PR. We're talking about their
True.
studio right now.
True.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kind of think it was just somebody who was like, "Hey, I worked really hard on making the sound right on this thing, so I want to get it out there." That kind of thing. I'm not too
yeah,
sure. And of course, a lot of people who hear this are like, "Oh, Batgirl as well," because Batgirl got cut because of this whole like it's cheaper to just cut the taxes. Um,
yeah.
I don't know. Do you think this is fair? I kind of like, yeah, go for it. Keep stealing from WB if you're gonna leak it to everybody.
Well, I think if WB is going to lock up their stuff and throw it away, then yeah, that's wrong. And people put a lot of effort into it, so yeah, you get paid for your work, but also you should be recognized for the effort, for your work, for
Yeah,
your art. So and the people that are getting paid, like actors in movies, get residuals. They get paid over time as it airs again and again. So do these people not get paid what they would have if the studio decided to release the movie?
residual
You know what I
wise,
mean?
no, you're very right in that point. That's a really good point. I didn't think
So
about
they're
that.
getting a tax credit, but they're stealing from their employees pretty much.
Yeah, because when an employee signs that contract, they have an assumption that like, well, I'll still be paid down the line because of this or that. You know?
Yeah. So I don't know. I see a lawsuit coming with that kind of stuff. They're just doing some shady business, especially if they could. I don't know if they've acknowledged the fact that we'll just hang on to it for tax purposes, but it's obvious that that's what's going on. You're not withholding it because it was a really bad idea or it was offensive or one of the main
Yeah.
characters went out and did something that makes the company look bad or anything like that. So what's your justification for not releasing these movies?
Their whole thing is that it's just cheaper to make sure that you can write off as a tax thing, which to me is like you're in the creative business. Like it's just such
Yeah.
a shady way to go about your business.
And it should be illegal to use a loophole. And when you're using a loophole in the tax system, you should have to like stay hush hush about it, not say, "Hey
Yeah.
guys, we're gonna go ahead and cheat the system."
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just not
In a
right,
way,
not
I think
fair.
aren't we paying for that loophole to exist then? Because if they're going to be able to take the loss on it, then doesn't it come out of taxpayer money?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
They pay less in taxes as a corporation because
So
of
therefore,
that
we pay
loophole,
for it.
so it puts more of that tax burden on us.
WB, you guys suck.
Yeah.
Speaking of the WB, they had one of the shows canceled was Batman Caped Crusader. This is basically the Batman animated series. Bruce Timm, the guy that made that show, was like, I'm going to make a
Mhm.
new one, but it's going to be just straight up focused on adults now, for adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
They canceled this thing, but Amazon went ahead and bought it and
Oh,
are
nice.
going to release 2 seasons of it for now. Amazon, by the way, guys, is like surprisingly this animation domination place. It's super good for like Invincible, all kinds of really good stuff. And I think this is a good home. What could a more adult version of the Batman animated series look like, Jonathan?
I mean, I don't want to go as far as, but I thinking adult animation. I like Rick and Morty, but I'm thinking of Drawn Together. You remember how rough and edgy that show
Oh,
was?
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to go that far, obviously, but there's room somewhere in between here and there that can be. You'd see Batman does kill people sometimes or something like that. I don't know if they'd
Hmm.
want to change his character, but to make it edgy, like or the villains. People do die because
I think
of.
the crimes might be worse. Like, what if there's sexual assault and Batman has
Yeah.
to deal with
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
who survived sexual assault? Like, we don't
Yeah.
see that anywhere else, but Amazon would handle it. Bruce Timm would probably tackle it.
Yeah.
And, God, and somebody who
And
sees, oh, this is a Batman story. Someone who
what's that?
kills their sexual assaulter. And what do? Like, you're like,
Yeah,
good on you, you know?
because we've seen in kids' movies, Batman is faced with black and white most of the time. It's
Yeah.
always the Joker's going to kill a bunch of people, or this person's going to fall to their death, or whatever. But there's not a lot of that walking the fine line. inside Batman does. He walks that line of, do I kill the Joker or do I hinder him or get him in prison or whatever? But we don't see it in the city, and more exposed to like the crimes and whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, I think you're right. That'll be more more exposed as the true and sad struggles that people see all the time now.
Yeah, and then it's seeing Batman have to deal with that dilemma of like, when is the law not the right option? That's definitely gonna be
Yeah,
something that's gonna come up. I look forward to it because Bruce Timm and his work with just the restrictions of hey, it has to be for kids, still made some of the
yeah.
most wonderful stories. I remember. Jenna Ortega, John, have you watched Wednesday on Netflix?
I have not.
Same.
Yeah. Everybody says it's good. I've never been a huge Adams Family fan, anyways. I don't know. I have some other gripe with it, but in general, I just haven't watched it yet. I don't really plan on it, but I don't know. I'm hoping it's good.
Yeah,
If it continues to be good, I'll probably watch it. But I figured it's gonna fizzle out and move on.
it's
What do you
big.
think?
It's already got the second season.
Yeah,
I am an Addams Family fan, but there's so much stuff to watch. I don't have time yet. I will watch it
yeah.
eventually. Jenna Ortega, who is the main from that show, she's playing Wednesday Addams. She's
Hmm.
in talks right now to join Beetlejuice 2 with Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder. She'd be like Winona Ryder's daughter. Of course,
God
Winona
damn it.
was Lydia from the first show, from the first movie.
Yeah, if they do that, then I got to go back and watch this. I got to follow this girl's career if that's the case. I'm not gonna pass up on a Beetlejuice movie. Come on.
uh, yeah, Beetlejuice. I'm like afraid of that messing that up. They don't need to make sequels all the time. But that being said, Michael Keaton's playing Beetlejuice again.
Yeah,
So it's kind of awesome. I don't know, I just hope they don't mess it up.
yeah. It's a dilemma between should there be a sequel or a remake or a different story entirely in that world. Those are,
Yeah,
generally the three options to me. And I like the idea of a different, same world, same environment and stuff, but just a different story with different main characters.
right.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think a sequel or a remake, we would still like it. It's just you're afraid that they're going to kind of ruin the thing that you love. So it's hard. You got to be careful with it, but have it vetted too. Like that Sonic movie, how Sonic didn't look right and they changed it. Have people check it out when you're in your second or third stage of the process, not close to done, and be ready to make some changes
Yeah,
when it's that important
if they
to
want to
people.
set us screeners, we'll give them a quick first pass and let them know how it is, and then they can go off of our
Yeah,
opinion. I think that's our best bet, really.
exactly.
John, you were just in Disneyland. Well, Bob Iger, the CEO who returned last year, just at the end of last year, has said, you guys are right. We increased the prices at Disneyland way too much. So they've been reducing the prices since November, and they plan on reducing them even more. And they said that we increased price without increasing value. And so what they want to do is wait until they add more to the park, including the Avatar world that they're working on right now, before they ever try to worry about increasing prices again. Do you feel like the prices are at a good spot? What is it that Disneyland's missing the mark on right now?
Honestly, so the prices seemed about the same as when I went 7 years ago. I
Yeah.
don't think they were much more. It was I could be off on the numbers a little bit, but it was roughly $100 per person per park,
Mhm.
or per person per day for a regular single park ticket, and then I was thinking it was like 120 or something like that for the park hopper, and then it was
That is
like
a
one.
lot cheaper than it was like a year ago. So Bob
Yeah,
Iger
yeah,
said he reduced the prices back in November. That sounds like it because that feels like it's way cheaper than it was. Because that's about what I
yeah.
paid like 5 years ago. And with inflation and everything like that, like that's pretty good. They're gonna get you on the corn dogs, folks. Don't
The,
get me wrong, but
the to be fair, I didn't book it through Disney. I booked it through Costco and
yeah.
got a package deal, so that brings it down a little bit. But I think we paid 165 or something like that per person for the park hopper passes.
Mhm.
So with the Genie Plus in it. So yeah, it
Yeah.
really didn't seem like it was much more. The park was great. I love, like, it's so immersive. They do a good job. It kind of reminds me like when you're on a cruise ship and like everything is there for you. You walk into this Disneyland, the whole world in there. My wife would even talk about how like it seems like the air in here is different. The sky
Yeah.
looks like it's painted on the ceiling. Like it just feels like this whole world you're in is made for you, for children to be entertained and have fun. So yeah, they do a good job at immersing you, and you don't see like garbage on the ground
No.
or spots they didn't paint very well or something like that. Like they pay attention to the fine details, and that I think that makes a big difference. So
I watch
I
a lot
liked
of
it.
TikTokers that work at Disneyland and World. And one of the things
Mhm.
that they're talking about is like the first thing they'll teach you is how to pick up garbage without stopping your walk, so that it doesn't
Yeah.
look like you're actually picking up garbage off the floor of Disneyland. And so
Yeah.
it's like this walk and sweep thing they do. Um, I mean, it's hard. I mean, for people who haven't been to Disneyland before, it really is like straight up magical. Like
Yeah.
when you're in that place, the rest of the world doesn't matter. I couldn't tell you who the president is while I'm on a ride, and it's just such a cool place. But speaking to Bob Iger, he agrees with that, and like he's saying, we're just putting out too much stuff right now. We need to scale it
Mhm.
back. When Disney comes out with something, it needs to be premium content. You need to know
Yeah.
that the next Disney animated Pixar thing is the thing you'll be talking about for decades to come, and it hasn't felt like that the last couple of years, right? And
Mhm.
so even like that's part of like the price thing. Price it needs to be affordable to everybody because it's all about creating the buzz of Disneyland, not like, oh, we're rich, so we're going to Disneyland. It's more about like the
Yeah.
mystique of it. And so
Mhm.
I gotta be honest, guys, I'm just happy Bob Iger's back. I know he has sure every CEO's got a bad past somewhere, of course. But I don't know. I'm kind of happy with this idea of like Disneyland or Disney trying to return back to its OG roots of being classy.
Yeah, and I think they should always have it. If there has to be different options or whatever, there should always be a way that any family can afford to go to Disneyland.
Mhm.
It should be, entry level pricing is as low as possible. I don't remember there was somewhere where they calculate the park entry based on minimum wage, but I don't think it's Disneyland. But
Comic-Cons.
there should always is yeah, it should always be affordable. And if you want to pay extra and have the Genie Plus thing, I get that. It's a little bit of classism separating who can and can't afford that, but there's got to be a way to get everyone in there to be able to experience it. The couple things do I would change in Disneyland is one, I hate waiting online. So Genie
Yeah.
Plus definitely helps with that, but they are doing a good job with some of their rides where they'll bring you into the ride and they start interacting with you early so it doesn't feel like you're
Yeah.
waiting, and that kind of move the herd of people from this spot to that spot and then break them up into smaller groups, and then those groups get broken up and onto the ride. That little handling really does make it seem like you're waiting less.
Mhm.
You're distracted, and there's things they set up for you to look at while you're moving through the lines and stuff. So I think that was smart, and I think they're going to keep doing that. I saw that in the new Mickey Mouse uh, train ride. What I can't remember
They
what it's
did that
called.
with Galaxy's Edge, right? That's one of the big features is the
Yeah.
fact that you're constantly actually you're in the line, but you don't feel like you're in the line as much. Did they do
Yeah.
that with Spider-Man as well? Or not
Um.
as much?
Yeah, 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 yeah. They did have some kind of we used the fast pass on that one too, so didn't wait long either way. But they bring you in and there's a little introduction and handling before you get into the carts, which is kind of cool.
Disneyland is so
So
cool.
yeah, they're smart. Though some of the rides still do have a really long wait,
Yeah.
like especially Galaxy's Edge, but I think that process kind of makes it feel like it's a little bit less. Another thing is, everything costs money. It's
Mhm.
expensive to be there, and just a corn dog is going to be like $8 or something like that.
Yeah.
But they're trying to kind of hide that because that's their business. They're going to make their money, but you don't want to be out there counting your pennies and feel like they got both hands in your pockets, even though they do. But they have those wristbands you can get, or I don't know if they're not watches, I don't think, but the wristbands
Yeah.
where you link your ticket and your bank account or your debit card or whatever to it. So you come in and out of the park just by scanning your wrist. You can use your fast pass just by scanning your wrist, and pay for stuff. So
Oh,
it's
man, too easy.
yeah, it's kind of like when you're on a cruise and you just charge it to the room
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we don't handle money here. Everything's taken care of already. It's taken care of by you and your bank account, but
Yeah.
it's taken care of.
Meanwhile,
So
your
the
bank
price
account at
doesn't
home is
matter.
sweating bullets.
Yeah,
Did you
right.
need an
You're like,
$80 sweater while we're doing this?
you're in the negative $500 with every $25 overdraft fee. Oh
They
god.
get me on the cruises,
Uh,
man. It's like, all right, I'll take another pina colada. What the heck?
yeah.
Freaking $12 each. You got
Yeah.
your
Well,
stuff
you
paid
want the
for.
decorative mug that comes with it, right?
Well,
Well,
of
of
course,
course,
it's a
yeah.
souvenir as well. What a steal!
Souvenir, yeah. Jeez.
Oh
But yeah.
man,
Oh, and some of the rides are a little dated. There's one called Autopia we didn't actually go on, but
that
it's
is
just
old
those little
school.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like
presented by
it's time
Honda, I
to
think. Still, yeah.
yeah, it's time to update certain ones like that. But Disneyland comes out with or Disney comes out with so much new content. When something isn't in their park, you feel like they're avoiding it for some reason. I'm like, I would walk around and be like, well, they don't have anything for this movie or for that movie or this show. Like, how come that's not here somewhere?
Yeah,
It's just because they produce too much. Too much to be able to put it all in the
especially
park.
nowadays. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think they're working on updating. They had some rides that were closed
yeah.
just to be renovated, but they're they're making it harder for themselves when they're producing so much good content that people want to see it in there somewhere.
It's like Splash Mountain moving over to Princess Frog. I mean, Princess Frog came out, God, 15
Yeah,
years
eight
ago
years
now at
ago or
this
something.
point.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
So, yeah, takes a
Unless
while.
they're gonna make a sequel, but
Yeah.
I don't think so.
All right, moving on to this next one here. Funko, a company that we all spend way too much money on stuff. Well, you don't. You do good about it. They're dumping about $30 to $36 million worth of product into a landfill just because it's cheaper than shipping it out anywhere.
That
I'm
should
so
be
pissed.
illegal.
Yes.
Yeah. So just for no other reason except for the fact that that's uh ruining our environment. That's
Yeah.
just $30 million. I mean, Funko Pops aren't expensive. $10 a pop. 30 million of them is like 3 million Funko Pops, right?
Yeah.
So why would you just dump those in a landfill? Go give them to kids in donate them to St. Jude's Hospital
There we go.
and tell them you guys handle the shipping. Come pick them up and deliver them to all the kids in the hospitals that want a little plastic figurine. That's fine. They probably overproduced in the less popular characters, and
Yeah.
that's their problem. But still, distribute them to somebody. People will repaint them to be different characters they like, or customize them to be, their kid for his birthday or something. But yeah, I think that's just a terrible waste and just makes their company look really bad to be just dumping product they made.
Well, hell, the NFL sends all the losing team of the Super Bowl. They send all their shirts to Africa and donate them.
Yeah.
Like, you think they give a crap about? Hey, actually, the Philadelphia Eagles didn't win. They don't
Yeah,
care.
they want a shirt.
They're enjoying the shirt. They'll play
Yeah.
with whatever toy you could send to whoever needs it.
Yeah.
Obviously, as somebody who buys now, these aren't necessarily. They didn't say if it's 100% Funko Pops. Funko makes other toys too, but they're all toys. And
Yeah.
like as an avid collector, this is nothing compared to Squeaks, obviously. Um, it upsets me that it's like if you're not going to send it to a charity, you could just give them away to your fans that already spend a lot of money on it or something like that. Or I mean, just anything else than adding garbage to a landfill you don't need to and wasting
Yeah.
product. Like there's so many levels to why this is a bad idea.
Like
And
we
you
buy
know,
stuff from an auction site that sells pallets
we do it all
full
the
of
time,
stuff.
yeah.
Like just sell them cheap to a third party that would like to separate them out and make them. You don't have to pay for shipping to get them to Walmart. Just sell them cheap locally to another distributor to handle it.
Yeah. It's
I
so
don't know, but
frustrating.
it's they're probably trying to control their market, and I understand that, but it's bad on it's their fault for the problem that they're creating. But if they sell it cheap locally, somebody is turning around selling a ton of Funko Pops for a dollar a piece, and
Yeah.
now nobody thinks that it devalues the $10 or $20 ones that are in the store.
And I will say that there's no doubt that Funko Pop is on the decline right now just because there's less hype around like both Squeaks and I haven't bought a Funko Pop in a few months. And I only buy my whole rule is like I'm not willing to take it out of the box, don't buy it.
Yeah.
And Squeaks' whole thing is right now is like I can't buy a new one until I get rid of some of my old ones. Like that's we're
Mm.
both kind of found ways to regulate ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of I've sounds like a lot of collectors are doing that. Even Joe too has kind of scaled back a little bit. Joe used to just be like buying everything. Um, so I think there is something there, but use this as a PR moment in my thing. Like if you're gonna give them away, make a big stink out of how like, hey, we're donating $30 million worth of Funko Pops to children's hospitals.
Yeah.
There you go. You just got a free commercial out of it. Boom.
Yeah.
You know how much are you gonna
And you
spend
could
to make a
even
commercial?
work with a charity and have them set up an event or one that's already hosting an event somewhere and say, hey, we'll donate 10,000 Funko Pops for you guys to give away to the needy families or
Yeah,
less privileged families. Yeah, they don't care. They would obviously prefer their favorite character or whatever, but kids will take a free toy, and it keeps
yeah.
it. It'll eventually make its way to the landfill, but it'll keep it from going straight to the landfill. That's such a waste.
I just feel like there's so many better options than just throw them away. And then like you took what could have been a good PR moment and turned it into a bad PR moment. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, I'm wondering. Do you think there's somebody that will step up and compete with Funko at some point in this
It
collectible
is
kind of?
Yeah, it's all about the licensing. It's like Fortnite is still good because their licensing is insane.
Yeah,
Things that you couldn't think of would happen do happen. I'm like, you can play as Batman with spider webs. It's nuts. Um, so if there's somebody who can secure big licensing like that, eventually, yes. Funko just had like a good mix of like being really affordable. It's like $8 for a brand new Funko. Um,
yeah,
being really affordable, having the really good licensing, and generally looking cute is a really good trifecta there. Somebody will pick that up and carry it on. It might be another 5, 6 years before something finds its way, But,
I
one thing that I
I
really like is, um, they're doing those vinyl prints now, like, a vinyl record. Actually, Funko Pop bought a company that does it. That's funny. But
mhm,
where they do like the entire record's got a print on it. I've got the Metalocalypse is one of them that I have. There's a Guardians of the
yeah.
Galaxy one I want to get. I have a feeling like that someday might be a thing where like people frame ones that have the full print on it, and on it, of course, has the soundtrack to that song, which I
Yeah.
think would be really cool.
I could imagine Disney, if they really wanted to, getting in this realm of competing with Funko. You know, I don't know if they could pull back the licenses that they've already made with them, but they're the
Right.
only ones I could imagine competing with Funko.
Yeah.
Though I could easily see Amazon buying Funko if
Yeah.
this or other, if they continue to decline. That would be, I think that would be the next step is Amazon would just buy them up once they're, you know, worth a little bit less and kind of rebrand them a little bit or whatever. And then they'd just make a ton of money because they already have the infrastructure to ship them super easy.
Yeah. I can see it. That totally seems like something Amazon would do too, because they're so freaking. They're a little bit buy hungry right now. They're pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, moving on. Yugipedia, so the Wikipedia for
Mm.
Yu-Gi-Oh, managed by fans,
Uh-huh.
like many of these, like Wikipedia and stuff like that for Star Wars. Um, Somebody not thinking ahead of it accidentally deleted like the last 10 years of data off the website. Deleted the USB that had it on because apparently it was all on one USB.
What the heck?
So deleted all this information about Yu-Gi-Oh cards and like all the stats and stuff like that. Um, that guy's in trouble. But what I really like about this story is the fans united and started gathering the information to rebuild the encyclopedia now. And so fans
Yeah.
are like, "Hey, these are the cards I have. I remember that this all came in this pack," and really started kind of coming together with what cards they have, retaking pictures and stuff like that to upload to the site, and they're rebuilding this thing from the ground up. And I just like it's cool to see all the Yu-Gi-Oh fans like coming out together and like uniting to
Like
build a
it's a national
database.
emergency.
I
Yeah.
love it though, like, for geek stuff, like, yes, that's so cool.
Guys, we got to meet at the comic book shop quick.
Bring your Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, stat!
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Gosh,
How
that's
bad does this
funny.
guy feel for deleting 10 years of d information, though?
Oh, yeah. Seriously. Though I mean, has much changed in Yu-Gi-Oh for the last 10 years? I haven't looked at it since we were kids, but
Yeah,
I'm
but
sure obviously more cards have come out since
yeah,
then. But yeah, that's kind of crazy that it would just be like one person could delete their whole database of 10 years.
yeah,
That's funny. But yeah, it's cool to see fans come together for whatever the cause. It's fun just to be able to find other people to relate with like that and have
yeah.
a purpose to work towards together. So that's pretty cool.
In comparison to, like, Magic the Gathering right now, which is having such a hard time because the company behind it, Wizard of the Coast, um, has been incredibly greedy and has just made it so crazy. They're trying to be like Funko Pop right now. They're like making licensing with all these different companies to try to fit them into the Magic world, which is stupid.
Mhm.
But anyways, it's nice to see that Yu-Gi-Oh fandom is kind of working the other way around on this thing, where it's like, hey, we just really are big fans of this, and we're gonna keep building it. And Yu-Gi-Oh might be like the third ranked TCG right now, behind Magic and Pokemon, but it's still very strong community and stuff like that. And I just find it inspiring in comparison to like super greedy Magic and then like kind of the money bags that Pokemon has been lately. Kind of nice to see.
Yeah. Do you think if this D&D movie does really good, that D&D could create their own cards and compete with Magic?
Oh, I'm
Being
just really
being that it would
surprised they
get some
don't have something
mainstream,
like that.
yeah, being that D&D already has that you've heard of it before and you
Yeah.
know it's what the real deep geeks are into, but then bringing it to the mainstream light in a movie, it would make it a lot more relatable. And creating a card game versus a tabletop game, I think, would make it to where high school kids would get into it a lot easier. So
Mhm.
I could see if they were to do that once the movie comes out, if it gets the attention they're hoping for, I think that would be a good way to capture a whole nother fan base and compete with Magic if they're just trying to be super greedy.
D&D is getting really big too because it's got shows coming up and stuff like that. D&D is freaking out. We need to find a way, Jonathan, to do like a monthly D&D game, I think. We gotta figure this out.
I would be so down. Let's just all gather at your house.
That's the thing is I don't wanna do it online. Like, I wanna do it in
Yeah.
person. I'm not saying that we need to find a dungeon master. The problem is I've only played one session, or one game, which took about a year to do. And I had one of the best D&D dungeon masters ever
Yeah.
with Richard. I think I'm the best bet out of us to do it again, to do it for somebody else.
Yep.
But man, You got one thing I have to admit, guys, you have to be okay being a complete dork ass for a bit until you warm up. Like you're gonna feel like an idiot. Like I wouldn't do the voices because my guy was a bird type person, so I wouldn't want like, I'm over here. But you wouldn't be doing that the whole time.
I would love to do
Yeah.
that.
Well, Scott was on board. Scott was like at one point an evil wizard, so he's like, well, I think it's over here again. Like he was in on it. Everybody has been Kyle stuff, but I'm like, yeah, my bird guy says this. We'll have
Yeah.
to figure it out. I think Squeaks is on board just like once a month, and we get together. The key is to like
Yeah.
everybody experience it. We'll go lighthearted, but I'm like that TikTok man. It does such a good advertising for like random shit I don't need. But I'm like seeing the complete sets where you like build a map so you can like have people walk around on a map. It kind of helps a lot. Oh man, okay, we'll think
But
about
if
this.
I got my act together and got my 3D printer really dialed in, they make really cool maps out of
Yes,
you print tiles with it. It's like, man,
I do want to buy
yeah,
like little cleric, which is it's arachno. I forget it's the bird type, but he's a
uh
cleric and he like worships the high spirits, which is beer. And yeah,
yeah.
dude, I think that would be really cool. So, all right, guys, we're gonna start working on that. We're gonna talk about monthly D&D matches. We'll see sessions.
Would we'd have to do like a 4-hour session at least, right?
They're
To
4 hours, but it's a
really,
lot of beer and drinking and hanging out and and having fun
yeah,
with it. That the key is that everybody has to kind of like build their character first, which we might need to just like the first session might need to
spend a
be that
day.
because
Yeah,
because there's a lot to it more than you would think, and but picking a race and a class is super important. That's your first move,
yeah.
and then
I started looking into it when you started playing. I was like, oh, I got to do a lot of research to figure out what I'm gonna do because once you make your person, like that's who you are. So
yeah,
you don't want to mess around and be wrong about
and
something.
they go from session to session really if you want them to. So like my cleric
Hmm.
Gorgon, he can move from session to session. So if I wanted to bring him into whatever game, I have Gorgon
Yeah.
with me and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, here's my cleric. He survived this battle and this battle from other games, but that's in his resume now, and it's pretty dope. And like he's bound to this dragon. Well, that dragon and him, they both go together in a new session and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
That's pretty cool. And we could live stream it too if anyone cares to watch for 4 hours what we're
not the
playing.
first one when we're trying to scratch
No,
our heads.
yeah,
We're like, wait a minute, guys, and
yeah.
you got Daniel over there making bird sounds or whatever he does if he becomes a goblin or something like that. It's so cool, man. All right, I'm excited to try this out. No joke. I'm gonna look into it. I have the
Nice.
starter set. I keep seeing these big maps that people make. I'm like, I kind of want to make one of those maps. So might have to
What
check that
what
out.
do they make them out of
So
normally?
they'll do them like out of big foam pieces, but then they'll like stack foam pieces up to where like, oh, this is what this looks like a wall over
It's a
here.
tower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
I mean the world is endless, really, right? Pretty much you could do whatever you wanted, but um, it's funny how like, oh yeah, our whole thing is to stop Cthulhu from taking over the world. But there's this cave that they keep hearing whispers out of. So let's go check out this cave. And the entire next 2 days is spent exploring this cave. And in it, you might find the greatest gem ever that actually empowers you to do this thing. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I had so much fun in this one cave. Oh, that's right. We got to go fight Cthulhu. That whole thing. And
All
so,
right.
oh, it's super good. One of my favorite sessions, and I felt bad because I ended up taking a lot of the time, but we accidentally stole almost infinite gold. And so we had pretty much infinite gold. And then I spent most of one of the sessions um, basically bribing and talking my way through this political system of this island that it was in the middle of an election and siding one with one of the candidates and then convincing the people to go with that candidate. And he became president so that we could eventually. And it was just mostly me talking about politics the whole time, like within this island economy and having enough money
Oh
to
my
just
gosh.
bribe everybody. Oh, God, it was so much fun.
That's so funny.
Moving on to the news.
Sorry.
No. Shush. Me too, man. Me too. All right. So there's a couple big things I want to talk about. There's been an interview. This is from Den of Geeks. Check out Den of Geeks, guys. I really appreciate their work. This is from Joe George that wrote this. But he was mentioning how one of the Marvel directors that's going to be working on Fantastic Four, which is, I think it's, sorry, let me just take a quick, it's Matt Shackman. He's working on Fantastic Four. He was working on the Star Trek movies that had like Chris Pine as Kirk.
Mhm,
And he says that really Fantastic Four felt like just making a new Star Trek. And a
mhm.
lot of that boils down to community, exploration, acceptance of all people, new worlds, stuff like that. What do you think Star Trek can add to both the Fantastic Four and the Marvel universe that it's missing right now?
So one thing that Marvel doesn't do very much very well, and it annoys me sometimes, but you just got to play along with it because it's kids movies. Uh, you know, we're not the target audience most of the time.
Mhm.
Is they don't explain the science behind what they're doing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I love in Star Trek the techno babble, the fake science they make up that they make it sound like it makes sense
Yeah.
and it's believable. And when they do a good job with it, they carry on the logic that was developed with that terminology so that later on, when they say, he has to generate a quantum field or whatever, you're like, oh, well, yeah, that works the same way it did 6 episodes ago when
Yeah.
they did it that way, but they're adding this other trick to it or other element. It's like, oh, that's so cool. That it's cohesive. It's stuff that isn't in our world or in our, reality now, but they make it so. And a lot of stuff in the MCU is just kind of shoehorned together, or it don't worry, it just fit.
Yeah.
And it's like, just make up some words, give us some fake science behind why that works, and we can, something we can grab on. But they don't. I get it. That's fine. But I think that would be a really cool thing they can explore in the Fantastic Four, is a little more of that science and sci-fi.
Yeah. I think one of the big benefits to Star Trek that I think is kind of an unsung hero about it is it's the version of the future where we win, right?
Yeah.
Every time you see something about the future, even Star Wars, which I know is a long, long time ago and land far, far away, um, there's still like, oh yeah, or like Terminator, oh yeah, the robots beat us, or oh, it's post-apocalyptic. Everything's post-apocalyptic. In Star
Yeah.
Trek, we figured out warp. We found a Federation. We are spreading hope and joy, and we're all about science now. Like it's just
Mhm.
the happy ending, and
Yeah.
I like the idea of this optimistic look on both humanity and science that I think Marvel could use because, like, if you look at Ultron, it's just like, yeah, when we use too much science, it becomes one of our biggest enemies. If
Mhm.
if that worked though, then we're gonna have like robotic peacekeepers helping everywhere under the control of somebody we did like, Tony Stark. So I
Yeah.
mean, there is some optimism there, and I would like to see that where it's like, you know, to kind of explain Mr. Fantastic, you walk into a room and he's like, "Hey, check out this new tech. It changes colors and it adapts to your skin, so it could replace skin for burn victims." And then he like shows off this tech, and all of a sudden it's like, "Wow, what a great cure for a thing I didn't really think about we needed." Or like,
Yeah.
"Hey, look at this. This isn't nothing now, but it might lead to the cure of cancer." Like that's how he greets people, in comparison
Yeah.
to like the doom and gloom of Magneto. That's like, oh, mutants are being mistreated. Let's destroy half the. It's like that's good and all. I get that's good storytelling. Sometimes you just want to hear Mister Fantastic being like, "The future is tomorrow or today."
Yeah. And that's another thing, like you're saying in Star Trek, it's all about hope. It's a hopeful future that Gene Roddenberry, built for us. I like that. Like, there's no racism or discrimination,
Right.
or when there is, it's being used as an example of how we can't tolerate or why we can't tolerate that kind of
Good
stuff,
call.
or the simple concept that money doesn't exist in the Federation.
Yeah.
It's like there's no currency because we created the technology, we worked together and made unlimited energy, unlimited food and resources because we have the technology to create the resources out of thin air, pretty much. And so, like, imagine how a world interacts when nothing costs anything. You just have
Yeah.
whatever you want, have as much as you want, and then kind of greed goes away. There's a lot less ability for power and control over each other and stuff like that. So I think that'd be interesting to see those kind of elements, you know, added to the MCU.
And how cool would it be to have a hero that's talking like that, in comparison
Yeah.
to like last ditch effort to save the world or something like that. I would like to hear a hero that's just like, look, tomorrow we could have everything we want and everybody
Mhm.
could be peaceful. That would be hopeful. This has me more hyped for Fantastic Four than anything else. And
Yeah. I it makes me think. So we know the scroll invasion thing's coming on, and we as an audience and based on what we've seen in the MCU, we would naturally think there's humans and superheroes, and we are us against these alien invasion, these
right,
scrolls. What if what was his name? The Fantastic Four. They see that perspective of maybe these scrolls aren't bad guys, maybe they're not our enemy,
a one
maybe they're
hundred
just
percent a thing they would
curious.
do too. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe we need to get to know them before we start fighting them. And they have that hopeful perspective of, like, are humans right? Maybe humans need to scale back on what they're doing because we're actually causing this corruption. We caused Thanos to come here and try to destroy all of us or whatever.
yeah.
A different perspective that we wouldn't naturally think of as greedy, selfish humans.
The big elephant in the room too is that Kang, of course, we all know Kang,
Mhm.
is a descendant of Reed Richards. So at some
I didn't
point,
know that. That's crazy.
yeah. So not a
Wow.
descendant. He's a Reed Richards is a descendant of
Ancestor?
his because King's
Yeah.
from the future.
Is
So he's born from that line. And so there's that thing too. And like Kang, we all know right now, don't worry about it, guys. He's a bad guy. But eventually, there are like Iron Lad comes from him. There are like good heroes that come out of the King line because if you take one of the multi-million Kangs and you like
mhm.
switch a little knob in him or a little bit of this, all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I'm a good guy and I happen to be really good at science. And so
Mhm.
there's that too. But yeah, I look forward to seeing that same thing with Doctor Doom, right? Their big villain is a guy who's like we've talked about this in the past, but he's literally a guy who's a ruler of his nation, will use magic science together because he sees them both as a way of control energy. So gargoyles. And and yeah, and I like that. It's not that he's like, oh, I'm trying to destroy all humanity. It's like I'm trying to make sure that my people survive no matter what. And it's like,
Mhm.
that's a pretty good bad guy. You can't hate him.
Right?
So
Yeah, I mean, Darth Vader just wanted to bring order to, disordered civilizations, right?
I'm watching Star Wars Rebels right now, and it's like so many things. It was like, oh yeah, they were mean all the time. It was like, sure seems like they're keeping the peace in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
All right, somebody has to be the law, right?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Sticking in the Marvel world, Ant-Man 3 has experienced the biggest drops in its following weeks in all of Marvel franchise history. Uh, did well in the opening gate, fell out of nowhere, and now Creed's number one. Jonathan, do you feel like Marvel's doing that more and more, where they're like kind of just as long as we do good day one, we're fine, and walk away from it?
Well, I think they don't rely on box office sales as much as everybody else does.
Mm,
They know this movie pushes along their story and it helps with subscriptions to their Disney Plus,
mhm.
where because if you're going to keep moving along with the MCU, you got to catch all that, the Disney Plus streamed stuff, content. So to them, yeah, the box office sales aren't a big deal to them. They have a ton of merchandise that's going to sell. And, this gets attention in their parks and stuff like that with the new stuff they have there. And they're not worried so much about that as they are the next movie that it's gonna push along and how it's gonna
Yeah.
continue their story for the future.
Comparing this
And
to
I thought it was a good movie too. I liked it
I didn't hate it. I
overall.
think,
Yeah.
there's a MODOK, I think they could have cut MODOK, stuff like
Yeah, yeah.
that. Say you're a huge fan, like 10 out of 10 on both this and the first Iron Man. And returning back
Mhm.
to our Bob Iger discussion, do you think there's something Bob Iger can do to make that Disney premium content where we make less but better? And I'm saying that you're a super fan of both these movies, so you're just thinking about like, yeah, you could tell there is a difference between the two movies and when they released. Because my big pitch, I was saying this on headlines, is I went back to watch Iron Man multiple times. I definitely have zero interest in doing that for Ant Man, and I can't really pin why.
I didn't see Ant-Man when it first came out. It
Mhm.
wasn't until last year
The
that I
first Ant Man
watched
movie, yeah.
the first two, yeah. And I liked them.
Mhm.
I'm like, I didn't watch it because it seemed like it was going to be too silly or whatever. And maybe it's because I didn't have the pressure on me of this is an Iron Man quality movie or this is the MCU cliffhanger kind of thing. But just watching it later on after the story had already progressed past it, it was a fun movie. It was a good if it wasn't part of the MCU, I totally would have just watched that movie because it was interesting. And the first one especially, I think was my favorite,
Mhm.
probably my favorite of all three, really.
Yeah, same for me.
Uh, but yeah, for your question though, I don't know what you could do to really bring it back to be like the original Iron Man, except for maybe I don't want them to slow down on the content they produce because I love to see these new movies coming out all the time. But Iron Man hadn't had much before it, much of any value.
Yeah,
Spider Man and Hulk were the only things that maybe were on the radar before Iron Man came out, and Superman movies, but it's not really in the same world, I think, or same wheelhouse.
right.
So I think maybe spacing out their movies a little more builds a little more anticipation and stuff. But I don't want them to slow down. I want to keep seeing them as soon as I can get them. But I think that and scaling back. I mean, the
Yeah, making them a little less CGI dependent, more about story.
and the concept of the MCU, the fact that all your
Oh, I
heroes are all
see.
interconnected and stuff like that, that kind of it it, it degrades the value of each hero. I think
Yeah,
if you have you know, if you have a standalone Iron Man movie and Iron Man is the hero of the planet, he is the most powerful person and he just lands in some other country, destroys their army. Now those people are liberated. Obviously somebody has to come in and help structure a new government, but he can do
So
everything.
so
Well, he
United States of us right now to say that.
exactly,
But
yeah.
yeah.
So he can do that, but then Thor can do that, but on another planet.
Mhm.
And Ant-Man can destabilize the government from inside. And you have all these different people that can do so much different, amazing things. They're just not as great.
Yeah.
So I think kind of scaling back on how well they're intertwined, which really Ant-Man wasn't too much. I think it was just
Well,
Kang that
it
was
was pretty
coming in
much
from
just
somewhere
setting up
else.
Kang though. It was like trying to build up Kang as like the big. But you're right. Like with Iron Man, it was the entire movie was just one single story, and then at the
Hmm.
very end, we had a little bit of a sneak peek with Samuel Jackson coming out and saying, "Hey, let me tell you about the Avengers Initiative." So that was
Yeah,
just the one piece you had that was connected to anything else, and maybe they could do that more. I think Thor was kind of that way too, where like Thor was all just one thing,
yeah.
except
And
for
Thor
the
was one
fact
of
that
my
it's like
favorite
who was working
movies.
with the hammer, like somebody like they were trying to figure out how to deal with the hammer, and then if you knew like, oh, that's Shield, and that guy with the bow and
Hmm.
arrow happens to be Hawkeye, but outside of that,
Yeah,
you wouldn't have known. I think that's a good example of one too.
yeah.
You know,
So I like of the Avengers and them all coming together, but I think they're stronger independently. So
yeah,
if you introduce a new character, don't introduce him as him joining,
the
Spider-Man
MCU,
in a fight.
yeah,
Introduce him in his own standalone movie, and then maybe he'll join in later when he's needed or something. But they don't all have to be
yeah.
woven together so well. People like it. It's been doing good. They're making a ton of money, a lot more than I make, so they know what they're doing. But yeah, I think that might help to kind of keep them a little
I
more
think the
isolated.
first Doctor Strange movie is the last one that I could think of that was like, or maybe like the first Black Panther movie, but even that was already like super connected in the MCU. Like that first Doctor Strange movie felt like, oh, this is a section of the world we don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt very contained to that one thing. And then when he's doing with Dormammu, it almost felt like a Harry Potter kind of thing. Like, oh, we just didn't
Yeah.
know this part of our world existed yet, and so we're learning about it. Like, I liked that movie a lot too. Um,
Yeah.
I'm getting the itch to watch Marvel movies again. I haven't seen a lot of those classics in a long time.
I'm trying to watch all the Star Wars movies. I want to like
Yeah,
watch them with my wife, maybe my son, try to get them into it, go one by one, and if I do that enough times, eventually she'll see all of it.
you're starting with the prequels,
But
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
At Darth Maul.
Those
Hmm.
those I think are a little easier to get her hooked on
Yeah,
too, because they're a little more flashy. But also, I don't remember most of the story now that I look back and I'm like, I don't remember who does what with who and how this actually all pieces together. It's been so long since I've seen them, so I got to watch them in order just to really get the politics within the movies is
yeah.
what I don't remember.
The
So
Separatist Alliance, I didn't think about it all until I was an adult. Like I watched those things in like when I was in ninth grade. So the first one, and so the idea of separatist and like what does that mean and stuff like that didn't mean anything to me. I just thought
yeah,
robots. They're the bad guys. They're the
yeah,
robots. But then when you're
yeah,
older, you're like, oh, they wanted to leave the Republic and start their own
hmm,
thing, and they were being shady about it and stuff like that. It's like, okay, that makes sense. And
yeah.
that's one of the things that the movie got railed on in the beginning was that was like, oh, it's just too political. Like it's all this political intrigue when it's like we just want to see Jedi's fight. And I really like it though. Looking back at it, I think that was pretty cool. Like the whole Naboo stuff and all that. I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
I'm trying. So the parents are watching The Mandalorian, so I go over there to their house to watch it with them and kind of explain what's going on. And
yeah.
and uh, dad, our dad, he's having a little bit of a difficult time understanding the fact that like everything you're seeing, as wacky as it might be, has a name, explanation, a Wikipedia page about it, everything you're
Yeah,
seeing. And so like
yeah.
Mando gets the Naboo fighter, and I'm like, let me explain. This is my favorite ship of all of Star Wars. It's from Naboo. When we first saw it, when Anakin, like one of the big things was when Anakin stole one. And, like this thing is the hot rod to me of all starfighters. And then he starts to like the
Yeah.
ship too, but it's just kind of funny to for him to be like, he's like, "What is
That's a
this?" And I'm like,
thing.
yeah, well, like, yeah, he's like, "What is this?" I'm like, okay, so this is Beskar armor, and it comes from the steel, it comes from this planet. It was so it's like everything has a detail to it. And he's just like,
Yeah.
okay. Like he's liking the show,
It,
but it's like so much information that's available for you if you want
it's
it.
like taking a picture from World War II and asking about, things that are in the picture. It's like, well, yeah, this is this kind of tank and that's that kind of rifle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those things really existed and have an entire history to them, but
Yeah.
they build the world so well that everything you see in the show has some kind of backstory to it.
There's like a
I like it.
thousand books for Star Wars that people have written, and that all have named everything. Like everything's named for it.
Yeah.
And so it's just
It's
funny to see
crazy.
somebody new to Star Wars being like, what? There's so much information here. It's just, anyways.
I wonder if anyone's put together a book that has all the different alien races that have been on
Seems
screen
like they would be,
from
right?
Star Wars. Yeah, that just kind of like, let's get, they make so many different weird looking characters just to catch your eye.
Hmm.
So I imagine a book where it shows the snapshot of like where they were seen in a movie or something like that, and explain the name of their race and some of their, just a paragraph about the features of their people or something like that. That'd be kind of cool.
One of the meta things that happens a lot too, especially with Mandalorian, because they're good about it. But like when the droids go up and they try to manipulate technology, and they put the probe in
Hmm.
and they turn it, and it's like they have like advanced robotics and
Wi-Fi.
stuff like that. Why is this thing that's so old school, mechanical? It's like, yeah, you got to remember it's 1977 that the original Star Wars was made, and they have to use R2D2, which takes place like a year before this event, you know. But it was made in 1977,
Yeah.
so you have to make the technology kind of mix, and that's part of the
Hmm.
appeal of Star Wars is that it's like the holograms are real shitty holograms actually, but they're still holograms, stuff like that. So it's just funny.
Yeah. We have to pretend it's technology well beyond what we could understand.
Yeah,
So Wi-Fi wouldn't be able to work because it could be hacked. So they have to use a security key that's inside his little probe
yeah,
that justifies what he's doing, and then now he's doing a combination lock or something.
yeah. There's like
Yeah,
zero touchscreens in all of Star Wars too, and it's like we're way past that in IRL,
yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
it is what it is. All right, let's move on to Warner Brothers right now. They're making more Lord of the Rings movies, Jonathan. They have
Mm.
set up this huge, gigantic deal. It will not touch anything from the Rings of Power that Amazon's doing because Amazon basically this is going to kind of nerf their series, I think, in my opinion. Um, they are bringing on Peter Jackson for this, and the new movies are not remakes. They're going to be new stories told at the same time as Lord of the Rings. Is there anything in particular that you want told from the Lord of the Rings era?
Oh God. So I haven't read the book, so I don't know what else goes on there.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I love I loved all of them, honestly. But I like in the Fellowship of the Ring how you see how the hobbits live in just their, whatever you call it, in the Shire.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it'd be cool to kind of explore the cultures of these different. I mean, we saw the gnomes, is it, in the Hobbit? We
Like
got
the
to
dwarves?
dwarves, yeah. We
Yeah.
got to know their culture a lot more
Yeah.
in that. So I think let's go back to the Shire and get to know hobbits a lot better. But I don't know.
I
Do
saw
do they have any ideas of what it's actually going to be about,
No, they don't
the
yet. They just
movies?
said that they're gonna make more movies
Okay.
and that they're trying to get Peter Jackson to make them.
Yeah.
Somebody on TikTok who, because there's a couple TikTokers I follow that are like, they'll sit there and explain like, "Oh, this is why this thing is this," and of course, like Star Wars, there's a name, there's a purpose for absolutely everything you see.
Yeah.
And somebody brought up a really good idea, like, what if we were to get an origin story for Aragon that explains him joining the Rangers? So we have this
Yeah.
kid who like has left the kingdom. He's trying to forget his past because, of course, his Isildur and stuff like that did all the wrong decisions. So he's trying to leave
Mhm.
his kingdomness behind, make it on his own, and then he like is raised with these elves and learns elvish ways. He'd be like this outside, almost Jungle Book style, and then becomes this ranger that's like a mix of like elven technology and philosophy into. So that could be a really cool story. Is hearing the and just pit him against some sort of Sauron mini boss, and you'll be set.
Mhm. You know who's one of my favorite characters though? Is Saruman. That'd be cool to see
Yes.
kind of him as a story that shows him as a good guy and growing
Yeah.
in power, and then he is corrupted. But that'd be kind of cool.
Somebody brought up a really good point. This is a few years ago. Like Saruman in the Council of White, I think it's called, where it's him, Galadriel, and Gandalf. Galadriel and Gandalf were disobeying him at every turn. Like they were always d-bags. Like, oh, we need to make sure to keep the Hobbit and the dwarves here to talk about this mission that they're on. This is dangerous. Meanwhile, Galadriel and Gandalf like they already escaped, stuff like that. Like they're
Yeah.
talking behind his back the entire time. It's like, of course he went to the one guy who respected him, Sauron. Like how could you blame him? But that would be cool
Yeah.
to see like his descent into corruption, and then eventually,
Yeah.
like, I would like to see, like, Saruman try to do good with Sauron, like, maybe that was something that he was trying to do, because he's still
Yeah.
Saruman the White. It wasn't like he was just like, "I'm now fury and blood." Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Or yeah, if he's is he think he can use Sauron to get the power, the rings of power, and then use it against him and banish him. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
But he has good purpose, but then in the process, he does turn. He does become corrupted and loses his grasp. So I don't know.
yeah,
Be cool.
and then there's the Shadow of War storyline I would like for them to do at some point too. which is
Oh,
predates
from the
all this,
games,
but it's
yeah.
like it's the creation of the rings,
Mhm.
and basically the guy who was told to make the rings, he's dead now, but he's haunting one of the rangers, and the two work together. Like you get to try to like be a thorn in the side, and you're literally just going from like you're bringing down Sauron frontal force, like bringing an army and like capturing his castles and stuff like that, and taking him out one piece at a time. Like that constant battle would be a very Game of Thrones like thing. So I would like to see it,
Yeah.
on that too. All right, guys,
Yeah.
we're gonna close out with that. We have much more to discuss. Head to our website, by the way. It's either geekfreakspodcast.com, thegeekfreakspodcast.com, or even if you like it short, gfpods.com. Everything we discussed today, I wrote a full article for on our website. And if you guys watch headlines or listen to headlines on your podcast app, those scripts are exactly right here. So you guys could check all the news right away. And I gotta admit, I do pretty good with them. But even our top fives, I recently did top five Mario games and top five women in video games for Women's Month. So check it out, guys. That's geekfreakspodcast.com. Before we leave, next week we have a new question of the week. Head over to our Twitter. When this is releasing, it'll be out. The question is going to be, who's your favorite superhero? Nice and easy. Jonathan, you got any teasers for what yours is?
Oh, that's hard. I think right off the top, I'm gonna have to go Green Lantern. Though the recent
Yeah.
movie has not been great on him, but in general, he's one of my favorite heroes for sure.
Yeah, I think for mine, I'm a super basic B. I'm like Batman and Wolverine are my favorites. It
Hmm.
is what
What
it
about
is.
series where they partner up together?
Oh man. Well, I mean,
Or Batman versus Wolverine, have them fight.
yeah, right. There is the amalgam universe where they join and they're called Dark Claw, where they like combine a Marvel and DC
Oh
hero.
yeah,
It's called Dark Claw, and it's the
nice.
most like tattoo looking mother hudda ever. Like that needs to be on my arm now. Make it happen.
Right,
So yeah. All right, guys.
that'd be
So
cool.
head over to our Twitter or Instagram, answer that question, and we'll read your response. We'll try to on the next episode. We'll also read it in reviews. So if you review our podcast, we'll read those as well. Thank you again very much for joining me, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.